Scottish football is truly a unique product, but there are certainly some aspects which prevent Scottish football from ultimately maximising its potential. It could be argued that the primary hindrance that Scottish football faces is the current SPFL pyramid structure.
The Scottish Premiership is the highest division of football in Scotland. After a merger of the Scottish Premier League and the Scottish Football League, the new top tier was established in 2013 and consists of the best 12 teams in the country. The league formerly known as the First Division is the Scottish Championship, the second highest division of football in Scotland. Unlike the Premiership, the league consists of the next best 10 teams as opposed to the top 12. The third tier is called League 1, which used to be called Division 2, and, like the Championship, it also consists of 10 teams. And the final 10 teams of the 42 SPFL clubs play in League 2, formerly known as Division 3.
East Kilbride is the largest town in Scotland to have never had a team compete in the Scottish Professional Football League. The two-time Lowland League champions East Kilbride FC have lost out in the playoffs to both Cowdenbeath on penalties and Cove Rangers previously. Manager Mick believes that it's only a matter of time before EK are amongst the top 42 clubs in the country and would love to be the man to ultimately see them over the line.
I think one of the challenges for any sustainable model in this country is a fan base. I think the bigger the fan base you can get, the easier it is to try and grow the club organically. I think obviously we were situated 85,000 people, it's a massive town, but ultimately to grow that you need to bring success. And I think if we can bring success and we can implement that style and philosophy that myself and the staff believe in, then hopefully you can start to bring more of those people out their houses and here on a Saturday. But ultimately that only happens with being successful. And that's the challenge for myself here, is to try and bring that success to the club. And I think if we can do that, we can certainly grow the fan base. But ultimately it comes down to winning games.
Despite craving success for the Kilby, Kennedy believes that the current SPFL setup is flawed, primarily due to every club acting within their own self-interest and voters having their say.
I think everybody outside looking inwardly would agree that it's probably not the best setup when you're trying to progress through the leagues. I think there's also probably a broad agreement within the leagues as well that requires a degree of restructuring. The problem is because of the voting structure within the country, it's very difficult to drive any kind of change. But I think for the game to modernise itself and progress, then there needs to be some kind of restructure of some degree, but whether that will happen or not will be very, very difficult. But from my own personal perspective and opinion, no, I don't think it's best for a functioning competitive pyramid, and I also don't think it's best for football in this country. The positive thing is seeing clubs like Edinburgh, Kelty, Cove progress through, Spartans going up this year. And I think Bonnyrigg the year before, and I think what you've seen is they've all managed to stabilise themselves and progress through, so there is real progressive, ambitious clubs out with the leagues, I think, who bring value and add value to that. I think any of the clubs that have come into the leagues have certainly done that, and I think there's many more underneath the league structure, but I think that's where some of the uncertainty comes from, that's where the nervousness comes from league clubs, because when clubs have dropped out of the leagues into the low league, for instance, and obviously Brecon at the Highland League, they've really struggled to get back up. Obviously Brecon are probably in a very, very strong position still, but the other clubs have really struggled, so there's a nervousness when clubs drop out, that because of the strength out with the leagues of the clubs coming through, then there's a real challenge trying to get back up. But that's what a progressive competitive pyramid system should be. But unfortunately, when the weight of vote is carried by the league clubs, then there's always going to be a challenge.
Assistant manager Simon Ferry isn't too keen on the current SPFL setup, and having sampled football south of the border, he would love to see something similar implemented here in Scotland.
I don't think it's ideal, I don't think it's perfect, let's put it that way. I thought it was a great opportunity around about COVID time, when there was teams that were kind of their futures were decided on half a seasons, where I just thought it was a complete opportunity to put, was it 16 teams into a Premier League, most other teams having, was it 14 teams into the league. I'd like to see it. I think you hear a lot of players that talk when they leave Scotland, it's kind of the same old, we're playing the same teams 3 and 4 times a season. If you get them in the cup, it could be 6 times a season. Again, having played down south, I really enjoyed the variety of it. I think we had a 24-team league, leagues 1 and 2, going to different stadiums, only going to the same stadium once a season, and it just makes it a lot more competitive. Down south, we had kind of 12 teams that were capable of winning the league because the league was so big. So again, I think it would make it much more an exciting watch. I think it would give teams a much more an opportunity to get up as well, because you could introduce maybe 2 going up with a playoff system as well. So I think it would benefit Scottish football if we could get bigger leagues, definitely. Well, there's so many ambitious clubs at this level that are desperate to get into the league, so if there wasn't that, then you could maybe say there is a case of just keeping it as it is, but like I said, there's so many teams that are not just desperate to get in there, but they're willing to put the money behind it as well, so for me it'd be a great thing.
Ferry feels sorry for players that are successful having won their non-league divisions that there is no immediate promotion. He too believes that reconstruction would perhaps bring greater rewards for both clubs in and out of the current SPFL setup.
For players especially, the fact that you've went over a 30-odd game season and then you need to play an extra 4 or 5 games to try and get into the league above you, where a team up there, the league above, have finished bottom and they only need to play 1 game, and the team that have actually had a successful season need to play more games to try and get into that league. It seems a bit crazy to me. I think it definitely needs to be looked at. Like I say, if it was a bigger league, you could make that the top team go up, the bottom team come down, and then the second bottom from the other league go and play each other in a playoff. I would think that would be more a justifiable scenario.
However, like the gaffer, he too would love to help the Kilby on their quest for SPFL football.
I think the club as a whole, when you see the facilities, the owner, the ambition, they're willing to put the money behind it to try and do it as well. Like I said, it could only be a good thing for Scottish football. I don't think it would matter the circumstances or the situation that me and Mick were in. We're ambitious guys who want to do well, regardless of kind of the team they're at or their situation. Of course, having spoken to the owner and how passionate he is about it, you're desperate to do well for him. And then you see the boys as well, who great set of boys. So all your kind of thoughts and reasons to be successful is for them, and then ultimately ourselves. So if you want to test yourself against ambitious clubs, ultimately it's going to mean better players in that league, and testing yourself coaching wise, playing wise against better players. And like I say, I think for Scottish football as a whole, we need more teams like that, because again, you talk about the pyramid systems. I think there was far too many teams that were just happy to survive, whereas now that's not an option. I think in any league you look at now in Scotland, you need to be putting money behind it. You need to be ambitious, otherwise you'll find yourself out the leagues before you know it. And I think you see a lot of players coming through the leagues down to this level. Obviously, it's not just because of finance, but also the ambition of these clubs. So again, I look at East Kilbride, and the way I sell it to players is, for me, it'd be the best part-time club in Scotland just now. You know, when you think of finance, the ambition of the club, the style of play, the manager, the players that are here as well, the facilities. Part-time football, if that's what you're looking for in part-time football, then you get every single bit of that here. Now, I've seen other clubs at part-time level that didn't offer that. I'm talking clubs in League 1, League 2. And again, not just East Kilbride, I know a lot of other Lowland League teams, junior teams that are very well run now. It's not like you're just going down to the Lowland League now and you're getting forgotten about. I think there is people that are watching this for talent. I think you see a lot of people for the Lowland League going up to the leagues as well. So I think it's a great place for people to go and play their football.
After joining the Lowland League in 2013 and previously playing in the East of Scotland Football League, it's been a long journey for the SPFL's latest newcomers, Spartans.
Spartans have always been a really ambitious club. They've always thought about the game a bit more and wanted to progress it, and want to do the best for their own community and for players around it. The chairman, Craig Graham, he probably couldn't even tell you how many meetings he's had at Hampden or with different clubs trying to lay out the reasons for it. And so many times Spartans won East of Scotland League or Lowland League, and it was that glass ceiling there. And to be fair to Spartans, they didn't lose heart. There was a few clubs that didn't lose heart, where they still just kept pushing for it, because they could have got really demoralised about that. But they didn't. They cared about it enough to keep pushing, and they wanted it for. They've got a youth section of more than 600 players. They want those kids to have a pathway, which you've seen now. The likes of Jamie Dishington and Blair Carswell that are in the first team, they've came all the way through like youth sections at the club, and they wanted to give the rest of the kids that are there that promotion. So they kept going back, kept having meetings, kept trying to get a body of other clubs who were non-league at the time to support it and just keep going for it. And thankfully, I think Stuart Regan and Ian Maxwell, the SFA, they were both supporters of it as well, liked the idea of it. And I think eventually, a groundswell of opinion got them that pyramid structure. But I still don't think it goes far enough, but at least they've got it started,
The city of Edinburgh hasn't had 4 Scottish Football League clubs since 1948-49, so Spartans joined 2 of the country's biggest clubs, Heart Midlothian and Hibernian, along with Edinburgh City, in flying the flag for the country's capital.
I think there's some people who will say it's a negative because there's too many clubs looking for the same players in the area. I think it's quite a positive thing, because they're all at different levels, so it means that no matter what you are as a player coming through, there's somewhere to find your level, whether it's to go out on loan, There's been younger players that come, so they can go out to Edinburgh City, they can go out to Spartans. They're getting league experience before they're then maybe coming back to their parent clubs and trying again. So I think for Edinburgh football to have that many clubs at different levels, it means that, because a lot of people see Glasgow as the football, that's the football capital of Scotland and the rest of it doesn't really matter. But if you look at the number of clubs in Glasgow or the surrounding environs of Glasgow, I think to have that in Edinburgh as well and let football fans here know that there's a club that they can attach themselves to or go and play at or find a route into the game, I think is really important as well for the capital city to have that.
Despite the healthy representation that Edinburgh now receives within the SPFL pyramid structure, Gordon believes that ambitious clubs will ultimately be rewarded regardless of how the land lies.
Ones that have maybe dropped out of the League Two and come down, they've had a shock at how it is, but there's also a lot of the other ones who were East of Scotland, and again, it was a pub team to a certain extent for some of them. So I think this pyramid structure has allowed, whether it's ambitious junior teams, whether it's other teams coming in from West of Scotland leagues, East of Scotland, the ones that are ambitious can find a route up. The ones in the leagues at League Two who want to stay there and want to contribute positively instead of just exist, they'll find a place still in League Two, whether it's moving up to League One or pushing promotion or just sitting middle of the table but still proving their worth there. I think everybody's finding the right level now. The ones who have that ambition can use it to climb. The ones who know where they are and they stay there, but the ones that are lazy, there were so many that were lazy and lacked ambition and they were actually almost leeching off of Scottish football and Scottish football fans. They're finding their level further down as well, and I think that's helpful to the game. I think it keeps the game healthy, that you've got the right people trying to move up, take that enthusiasm and ambition, because I think we need that. I think there's too much in Scottish football for a long time where it just settled for what it is, and I think Scottish football needs to be more positive, and I think the pyramid structure, ironically, is helping it from the bottom up, rather than the other way around.
However, she too believes it's bizarre that champions aren't rewarded with immediate promotions at non-league level and considers the divisions within the pyramid to be too small in size.
I still think there's work to be done in the pyramid system, and I think that's where, if you're going to have the playoff system the same as you would with the other leagues, you have to have it exactly the same so the winner of the league goes up automatically, and then have playoffs maybe underneath it. If you're doing playoffs and you've only got 10 teams in a league, it's pretty brutal, it's pretty cutthroat, because you're almost always in the middle of a playoff somewhere, whether it's going down or going up, which is good and it's exciting for the fans, but for the managers, their jobs are at risk every week because of that. It means that they're scared maybe to put younger players in because every game matters. So it's about trying to find a mix of the excitement that those playoffs give, and they undoubtedly do, but also find a sort of middle ground that allows clubs to not be so fearful.
Despite acknowledging potential negatives, the Scotsman writer believes that the introduction of the SPFL structure should be considered positive due to several lower league and non-league teams' ambitions to ascend up the current pyramid.
I think it's brilliant. Again, before the pyramid structure came in, and I'm involved I'm a fan of Spartans, so I've seen how ambitious Lowland League clubs or East of Scotland clubs even at that time were. But I think there was far too long where you had teams who were paying players at the bottom of the lower division, and pennies still. They were still collecting their pennies out the meter virtually to pay the players out a porter cabin on a Tuesday night, and you're thinking this isn't the way we should be wanting to bolster our game. They were trying to get journeymen in, whereas I think having all these new clubs coming in, it's forced the ones at the bottom of League Two to try and up their game, and the ones that weren't willing to do that they're finding their level below that, and it means that the ambitious clubs can come through, and it's actually setting the tone because there's more and more coming through Highland or Lowland League now who want to match that ambition and see that there is somewhere to go. Because again, before that, when there was a glass ceiling, they were kind of just sitting there thinking, well, why should we invest money because we can only go so far, whereas at the moment there's a lot of money and time and excitement, enthusiasm being invested in the game at the lower levels.
But she believes that the primary flaw within League 2 is the protection of the team that finishes bottom, who plays the winner of the Highland versus Lowland League champions playoff in a two-legged tie, as its ultimately rewarding failure.
We were all, and we still are, we're protecting the bottom club, which usually is the one that isn't that ambitious, isn't putting things into it, so we're almost protecting somebody that isn't that helpful to Scottish football and punishing clubs that are positive and wanting to go back up. And that affects Brecon at the moment as well, because they were one of the clubs that weren't, they were maybe resting on laurels and thought they were safe where they were. they've come down and realised that, you know what, you need to actually put something into this, you need to reinvest, you need to aim higher, and they've done that. And obviously they lost out last year to Spartans, but are now top of the Highland League again. I think they'll just, they realise the importance of getting back in there and investing in their club instead of just sitting there enjoying the fact that they can go to somewhere where their SFA blazer on and enjoy being somebody.
After the possibility of league reconstruction was dismissed, the experienced journalist believes that a lack of television interest and clubs acting within their own self-interest were the key aspects as to why league reconstruction fell through.
I think self-preservation, I think a lot of people were panicking at that stage. They were wondering whether they were going to keep their clubs, be able to keep them going. And I think they thought if they messed anything up, that TV company might pull the deal. They thought TV would be the only money coming in throughout that period because there wouldn't be money through the gates. There wouldn't be same hospitality or sponsorship. And I think they panicked and thought, we just want to safeguard this TV deal at all costs. And it was about self-preservation. If the teams that were maybe in danger of being demoted at that point were more in favour of looking at something, whereas the ones that were safe just wanted to basically put their tin hat on and see themselves through the pandemic.
Bonnyrigg Rose were promoted into the Lowland League in 2019 after winning the East of Scotland Football League and gaining SFA membership. After finishing second and third in their first two seasons, both of which were curtailed by the COVID-19 pandemic, they went on to win the league title in 2021-22 and defeated Cowdenbeath to take the Blue Brazils' place in Scottish League 2 via the playoffs.
It was chaotic, it was magical, and it was all worth it in the end. It really took time, but I think the best things in life are the ones that are that you've had to work hard for and you've had to wait a little while for. There was that period that Rose decided that that they wanted to make the move out of junior football and move into the East of Scotland leagues and then get into the Lowland League, obviously with that goal of making it up into the big leagues. They decided to have a good pop at that just as coronavirus hit as well, which is very typical of a place like this. And they were on track for doing so in one of the curtailed seasons, but the season finished. The last game they actually played was against Dundee in the Scottish Cup, and that was in the January, and then football was ended effectively at that level. I think if Rose had that sort of period of time, it might have happened that season. They never actually faced Celtic Hearts that season. The way that it ended up, I think there was maybe called off games and whatnot, but they were certainly still toe to toe with Celtic. But that season curtailed, obviously. Celtic went up, and then all eyes were on Rose the following season. And the pressure really was from out with on Rose at least finishing top. They'd done so on an absolute canter. Rose went down to Berwick Rangers and that top spot was sealed, so it wasn't obviously the promotion or anything, but it was the fact, right, you're going to be champions, you're going to go and face obviously the eventual Highland League winners, which were Fraserburgh that year. And it was just incredible. Even now, it's still really hard to put into words because it means so much to these people. It means so much to the fans in the stand, the people in the boardroom. It is a really, really special club, and I know people here really keep pumping that. But until you actually come and you spend even just 90 minutes at this ground, you understand how much that means to these people. It's fairly well documented that the chairman and the former treasurer came in, and this club were 30 minutes away from dying. That was such the state they were in just a decade ago now, just over a decade ago rather. So the fact that they've managed to do that, the ambition was always to try and get into the top leagues, and to do so the way that we did, or they did rather, against Cowdenbeath, and managed to do it at actually a bit of a breeze. I think, I would love to meet somebody that doesn't think that Bonnyrigg Rose have been a good addition into the SPFL, and I think the same could be said about Celtic and Cove and Edinburgh City. Every club's brought a little something, but with a little bit of a bias, I think this club's brought the most because it's the organic and the authentic way that Bonnyrigg Rose have done it. They don't have a big bank or a big powerhouse of money sitting behind them, and they've done it the hard way, and I think they've effectively done it the right way.
The Rosy Posy ought to be considered one of the more ambitious clubs in Scottish lower league football.
Oh, it's tremendous. When Cove managed to work their way up to the Championship, that's the dream of any club that are still sort of swirling around in the Lowland League, the Highland League. You only need to look at East Kilbride and you see the amount of money that they put into things, the amount of players that they're able to bring in. They're really going for it. Rose don't just want to be sitting about in League 2 right now. I think that's probably okay. And I think many would probably just bite your hand off it right now if they knew that League Two would certainly be where they were playing their football next year. But not just here to participate and to make up the numbers. This is the way that Scottish football certainly hopes to be. These clubs hope that Scottish football is going to be turning into that. These clubs that really have the fan base at their hearts, at their crux, that have a lot of ambition. And I think that's the biggest thing. There's certainly two clubs that have been swirling around there forever, right? You just look at the league leaders right now, Stenhousemuir. They've never been promoted. They've never won a championship, rather. They've never been promoted through winning a championship. So this is their first time. Rose have won many a championship. Steny have had that ambition this year, but how long it's taken them to have that ambition. Rose have always had that. Kelty had that. Cove had that. And Edinburgh City did as well. I think it's the ambition that these clubs have that is the biggest asset for sure.
Having worked at the Rosy Posy when the coronavirus pandemic hit, Canavan believes that the SPFL did the right thing when not rushing into any form of potential league reconstruction, even if she'd like to see some alterations in the future. I
think that it was a tricky time, and I understand perhaps why people thought that this was the best time to do it, but I think it's a massive decision to make, and to maybe just do it at the flick of a switch would have been quite tricky. I think you need to take into the consideration now. You remember how challenging the coronavirus period was. Nobody really knew when football was going to return or anything like that. So as much as perhaps now it looks easy that was the time to maybe take stock and change things up a little bit, I think it was more just about, right, how do we get our game back? And I think adding that stress onto what already was a really, really tricky period. I understand the fans' perspective, but I think logistically it was a really, really tricky time. And adding in everything that would included, we were talking about if, even championship clubs, League One clubs, would they survive, never mind League Two clubs. So I think it would just be a really tough time to go through a reconstruction when you don't even know which sort of clubs. Thankfully, everyone did survive it, but there was real genuine concern that many wouldn't. When the pyramid all sort of came into action, and it was, you couldn't simply just finish the bottom of League Two and think that you're going to be okay. In any sport, how is that all right? You're sort of, you can be the worst sort of the worst performer, and you're still not effectively being rewarded, but you're not being punished for it. There has to be a bit of a price to be paid if you're effectively finishing bottom. And I think for too long, too many clubs got away with that. And I think you can see that the fact that every club that has went down through the pyramid, and through Club 42 and through the playoffs, they've never come back up, and none of them have looked anything like coming back up. East Stirlingshire are doing very well just to remain in the Lowland League. Cowdenbeath have done absolutely nothing since Bonnyrigg put them down there. Berwick Rangers have probably been the brightest spark out of the lot. In the Lowland League, Brecon City up top, in the Highlands League, they're always still fighting there and thereabouts, but no side have went back down and automatically bounced back up. I think you're always favouring the sides that have that ambition, Trinent, East Kilbride, Bucky Thistle up north. That's where I think the enthusiasm is. You're effectively got, it's the situation with any player. One side are in the doldrums and the other side are on the up. So you're always going to have to fancy the one that are looking up rather than looking down.
Despite reminiscing positively about her time with Bonnyrigg Rose, the BBC journalist also believes that the pyramid system is somewhat flawed when you consider that league winners aren't immediately rewarded with promotion.
Absolutely. You win a league and then you have to still play 2 more games. You might even have to still play 4 more games if you really want to do it. It's absolutely ridiculous. It is ludicrous. The season that Bonnyrigg Rose went up, Fraserburgh had an equally impressive Highland League campaign. If you're winning a very, very competitive league, which the Lowland League and the Highland League are, that has to be where that's where the reward is. And I think that's what I mean, that there should be more promotion relegation, and it works in the Highland League and the Lowland League. I think it should work the same in League 2 and League 1 and the Championship, and getting up and getting down, that you should always be in favour of the underdog, so to speak. And I think that if you're having such a successful campaign, that essentially if you're winning the league, you absolutely should be up. But if you're also finishing second, I think the sort of onus should be on the league and the governing bodies supporting them, rather than trying to protect those that are still mulling around in the division, and are maybe only second last because the side that were last were absolutely awful, kind of thing. But the one thing that I think that the pyramid system has been positive in that aspect, and allowing clubs like Rose and whatnot up, but it shouldn't be. It's still to a degree a closed door. It's not as closed as it was, but the Highland League and the Lowland League champions absolutely should be going right up at the moment that they win the league.
Founded in October 1882, Albion Rovers joined the Scottish Football League in 1903 and maintained that membership up until they were relegated in 2022-23.
These problems are chronic. They don't happen over a season or two. Albion Rovers is sitting in a catchment area where buses fly out there to Celtic and Rangers, They're sitting there historically, and we're talking for a long time now, the support have been in the hundreds. Very loyal support, by the way, and very, if you go along there and talk to people, very committed support. But you're dealing in a place where over the years, it is just, there's been no real investment. If you go along to Clifton Hill now, you'll see that. It's a brilliant stadium, old-fashioned stadium, but has its wear and tears about it. And there's no huge investment. Now, behind the scenes there is a lot of talk and discussions about how they're very good and able support there that want to raise it back up to what it once was, but it's hugely difficult. It really is hugely difficult.
Having previously won the fourth tier as recently as 2014-15, it's been a decade of decline from the club from Coatbridge, who play here at Clifton Hill Stadium.
It's not to say it can't be done. It can be revived, but it is hugely difficult. And coming down to the Lowland League, it's no surprise that they're struggling in the Lowland League, because the Lowland League's a good league, and you know that by every team that has come out of the Lowland League and got in to the SPFL has stayed there. Now there is a route up. Now amongst that route is very straightened and very tight and very difficult to get in. And again, it's because people are not going to vote for a system that automatically gets them out of the league, like out of the SPFL. So it's quite a tight structure to get them in. It's quite a difficult thing to do. For example, the Lowland League club has to win the Lowland League, which is a tough league. Then they have to play the winners of the Highland League, which again is a very competitive league. Then they've got to play the bottom team in the SPFL. So it's not a straightforward thing.
Having now entered the unfamiliar territory of non-league football, the Wee Rovers are the perfect case study to show that SPFL status should not be taken for granted.
But the great story at the bottom of the pyramid is that there's clubs with great resource, great energy and great ambition, and always had that. I mean, so people have underestimated just what has been fomenting underneath the SPFL. They've been underestimating the resources of these teams, underestimating what they want to do, underestimating the sustainability of these clubs. Then they meet clubs at the bottom of the SPFL who, the clubs that have gone down have been struggling for years. I mean, Cowdenbeath were in playoffs for many years before they eventually dropped through the trapdoor. Albion Rovers, the same. East Stirlingshire, the same. Berwick Rangers, the same. There's a theme here. And that's the reason they can't get back up, because their problems have been chronic. Their problems have been, long-standing. Whereas the teams in the bottom tiers from Lowland League into West of Scotland and into East of Scotland, a lot of them not only are community clubs, so they have great footfall from boys' clubs and girls' clubs now, but they also have fully functioning committees, fully functioning social clubs. They have resources, and these are really strong clubs with strong histories, with strong backers. I mean, it's not any surprise that they are now, in the long term, eyeing the SPFL. Not at all. And then when you go further down the pyramid, if you look at, particularly in the West of Scotland leagues, if you look at the likes of Auchinleck, Pollock, Cumnock, etc., amongst others, they've got very good resources as well, and they will be the next wave.
It's tough to break in, but once they're there, ambitious clubs don't intend on merely making up the numbers. They are intent on changing the landscape of Scottish football.